Eye-catching interviews with today's top landlords. This is the Rental Income Podcast. And now, Dan Lane.
My guest on the podcast today is working on financial freedom and working on building out his rental portfolio, and I would say he's probably about halfway there. He's been able to cut back his hours at his job, so now he's working part-time, and it's all because of his rentals. So I think he's on the right path, and I think he's doing things right, and I want to find out exactly what he did and how he got to where he is today. So let's take a real quick break. We'll come back in 30 seconds, and we'll meet Mike Moreno from Baltimore.
Are you having a hard time finding great investment properties? Unfortunately, the best deals are rarely found locally. Successful investing begins with the right properties in the right markets. Norada Real Estate provides everything you need to invest in the best deals across the U.S. Our simple, proven system will help you create real wealth and passive monthly cash flow. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide to passive real estate investing at noradarealestate.com/guide. That's NORADA realestate.com/guide.
Hey, Mike, welcome to the podcast. So why don't we start with you telling us what got you first interested in buying rental properties?
Well, I was, I as I mentioned, I'm actually working as a dentist a couple of days a week. And a couple of years ago, when I got started in real estate investing, I was actually working a pretty strenuous, 5-day, work all day, no lunch break schedule. And I was just getting kind of tired. Mm-hmm. And I was looking around at, it's got to be another way to make an income or make a living, or how can I do this passively, So I started looking at different ways to make passive income. And I really get kind of attracted to real estate. And actually, when I was working, there was this local real estate school that was advertising on the radio on the station we played in the office. And I heard this advertisement, weekly for a couple of months. I'm like, I need to check them out and see what this real estate investing is all about. So I ended up, going to that school and about a year program and learning all about, flipping houses and buying and holding. And I just started jumping right in from there.
That's great. So because of your rentals, you've been able to cut your schedule back at work, right?
Pretty much, yeah. And I'm working a 3-day week mostly because, that's where I'm happy.
Yeah.
And, I'm managing my rentals on the side and, running a real estate education company as well. So I've just found, a kind of a happy balance, between the two areas.
That's awesome. Now, tell me about the school. So when you first decided that you wanted to learn how to invest in real estate and you went to the school, looking back on it now, was that helpful, or do you think you probably could have figured this out on your own?
I think it was extremely helpful because I honestly didn't know where to start. I didn't know anything about real estate. I didn't know what neighborhoods were good, what neighborhoods were bad, or even what a real deal looked like. So It was helpful for being not only in that environment where you can learn and ask all those questions, but just networking with the people who were there. So you can kind of learn from them and stand over them and watching what they're doing. And it just really helps get you started and get you in the right direction. Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's really kind of the most important part is connecting with local people in your market and learning where to stay away from and where the good areas to invest are. Because it doesn't always... It doesn't always make sense. Like what you think is a good area to live in that maybe you live in with your family isn't necessarily the best area to invest in. And
right.
I think a lot of times it's hard to kind of put that together. So all right, so you went to the school and you kind of got a bit of a foundation. Tell me about your first rental when you dove in. What did you buy for your first property?
I bought this was back in 2008. So I bought a townhouse in Manassas, Virginia, which was pretty far from where I was living, but turned out to be a good opportunity because, that the market was depressed at the time. You could pick up relatively newer townhouses that need very little work for, less than $100,000. So,
okay. And what did they rent out for?
They rented for about $1,200.
Okay. Those are great numbers. And did it need a lot of work?
About $10,000 worth of work.
Okay.
It was a true carpet paint.
Okay. And now, how about being so far away? I mean, you're a few hours away from that property, and you were self-managing it. Was that an issue at all?
No, luckily, I was able to get a good tenant right out the gate, so I haven't had an issue with that property. That neighborhood. That's the other thing. When you're looking at these finding rental properties, it's you want to find a neighborhood that you want to spend your time in. Mm-hmm. It was a neighborhood where it was a solid working class neighborhood. the people who live there, take care of the properties and had decent jobs and stuff. So, it really didn't lend itself to many issues.
Mm-hmm.
And because it was newer construction, it didn't have a whole lot of maintenance going forward either.
Right.
So I guess I could say I might be lucky in a sense I found a good tenant right off the bat. But, screening those tenants and really finding one that you're really comfortable with is so important,
And that tenant is still with you today, like 10 years, almost 10 years later. So what's the secret to keeping a tenant for that long?
It's really just listening to their needs and being responsive to like the maintenance issues. And also, every year if there's something that they, I try to give them something like, I don't know, like maybe new ceiling fans or like this past year, actually, it's been almost 10 years already. So they wanted, the place repainted on the inside and they wanted some of the flooring redone. I said, you know what, that's fine. Let's do that. Let's refresh the interior of the house and make it nice for you because they're treating it like their own house at that point. They're picking the paint colors, they're feeling at home and, whatever makes them want to stay there, that's what I'm going to do. Yeah.
You shouldn't be afraid to spend money because, by spending that little bit of money, they're happy tenants who hopefully will stay another 10 years. So have you had any issues at all with that property where you've had to actually be there, or have you been able to manage everything over the phone?
So far I've been able to manage everything over the phone. And it's really, the tricky thing is just finding a good maintenance guy.
Mm-hmm.
As long as you find a decent maintenance person that you can call when stuff goes wrong.
Right.
That's key. And it's really like looking in advance. Like for my other Baltimore properties, it's making sure I have like a backup maintenance guy. Maybe I have 2 or 3 that I talk to or have experience with that I can have on speed dial. So when an issue comes up, I have solutions right off the bat. It's not something I have to scramble for.
Now, how does that actually work out though? Because having one property, it doesn't sound like there's that many issues with the property. Like keeping that relationship up with a handyman that you maybe only call maybe once a year or every other year. Like, how do you make sure he remembers who you are?
Well, that's tricky. If it's just one house, that is definitely an issue.
Yeah.
Because they definitely want repeat work, and if you're not getting repeat work, they're kind of the bottom of the priority list. So I don't know if I have a real solution.
Okay. Yeah. So that house sounds like it's been perfect. It's worked out great, but that was the only house you bought in that neighborhood. Did you ever think about buying more properties in that area?
At that time, I was actually looking for more, but I was just getting started, and I was doing traditional bank financing with a 20% down.
Uh-huh.
After I bought that property, I think I had enough capital for maybe 1 or 2 more, and that would have been it. And I was also concerned about the distance, too. It was taking me an hour and 45 minutes to drive from my house, and I'm like, I don't know if I really want to build a portfolio that takes, that's so far for me to get to. And I did kind of interview some management companies, and they're not really too interested in managing that small portfolio. They want like 10 or more to really get excited about. So I was a little wary to focus my time and energies there. So I kind of I pivoted a little bit and kind of focused my time more close to home. And for me, that was Baltimore. It was only 20 minutes away from my house. So I kind of started buying there.
So let's talk about that. So how long was it from the time that you bought that first property until you started picking up places in Baltimore?
I say within a year. About a year later, I started buying stuff in Baltimore.
So you kind of felt comfortable, like you had a year's experience and you were ready to buy. What made you want to invest closer to home? Was it just that it was easier and there were good opportunities?
It was easier, and the cash flow, I was thinking more in terms of a cash flow situation. The cash flow in Baltimore is much better.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's more management issues, so all of what the cash flow comes from some management too, and the properties are older, so obviously there's going to be some maintenance. But, like a house that, a house that's all in at maybe $100,000, you're going to be getting anywhere between, 14 to 16. I'm actually getting $1,700 a month for some of my properties, so it's
okay.
It's so not a small difference.
Yeah, that's a pretty big difference.
Coming up on the Rental Income Podcast.
Mike mentioned earlier that he only had enough cash to buy a couple of rentals, and then he was going to run out of money for down payment. So I want to see how he continued to grow his portfolio using other people's money. He's also getting above market rent for his rentals, and I want to see how he's doing that. But first, it's time for a landlord pop quiz brought to you by our friends over at rentprep.com. Here's today's question. A 2015 study released by the Federal Trade Commission found what percentage of consumers found inaccurate information on their credit reports. Is it 5%, 9%, 18%, or 23%? So what percentage of people found a mistake on their credit report? The answer is 23%. That's right. Almost 1 in 4 people have a mistake on their credit report. Now, I was talking to Steve White about this, and he's the CEO at rentprep.com, and he said that's exactly what they're seeing when they're doing tenant screenings for landlords. And that could be a real big problem, because if you deny someone because their credit report has all kinds of bills that aren't being paid and all kinds of inaccurate stuff, they could be a really great tenant with a great credit score, but on paper they look bad. So you want to make sure that you're going with a company that's going to be really thorough. And rentprep.com hires FCRA certified screeners, which is Fair Credit Reporting Act screeners, and they know how to cross-reference databases to clean up an applicant's background report and get rid of errors, omissions, and false positives that come from some of the databases. So if you are looking to screen a tenant, the best thing you can do is check out RentPrep. They are by far the best tenant screening company out there. I recommend them. I think they're a really good company. And Steve has agreed to offer a 20% off promo code to our listeners here on the Rental Income Podcast. To get your promo code, just go to rentprep.com/Dan. Again, that's rentprep.com, rentprep.com/Dan. And of course, that's my name, rentprep.com/Dan. Nothing can crash your rental property dreams faster than a bad tenant. And that's why you really need to use RentPrep for your screening needs. rentprep.com/Dan. And also, if you go there, you can get the promo code, and they have a bunch of other landlord resources that you can get. rentprep.com/Dan. All right, let's get back to the interview. So, Mike, you mentioned that you were going to run out of money and you wouldn't be able to buy more rentals. So how did you do it? How did you grow your portfolio without using your own cash?
I started interviewing and meeting with private money lenders.
Okay.
So I get me a private individual putting up the cash, so I don't have to do the 20%, and then refinancing.
Okay.
After I had a purchase and rehab.
So so they would loan you the money to buy the property, right, and also fix it up, and then once you fix it up, then you would refi it and then pay off the investor. Did you have any money in the property at that point?
It's usually like the closing costs and the refinance costs.
Okay.
That's about it. So maybe anywhere between 10 to 15 per property.
You know, that's like magic, isn't it? That you've got just a little bit of money in this property that's producing a ton of money every month.
Right.
That's really awesome.
Yeah.
Was it hard to find properties? I know in Baltimore, there's some neighborhoods that are better than others. There's some areas you maybe want to stay away from. Was it hard to kind of figure out where to invest and where not to invest?
I think it was really spending some time just driving around and looking at the neighborhoods I was comfortable in terms of what looked like pride of ownership a little bit, making sure that the properties aren't too many boarded up properties or very boarded not. Properties are kept really well, and you want to see, that there's cars on the streets, right? So it looks like there's people home, and it looks like there's activity, and you want to see well kept yards, and even I really like to see like lawn chairs,
right? Yep.
Outdoor furniture. I want to see outdoor furniture, and people are not afraid to leave their things around. That's important.
Right. Yeah. So, that makes sense. Yeah. Because if it's a high crime area, any kind of furniture outside might walk away.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you're doing is you're getting paid not necessarily from your tenants, but by like an organization.
Yes.
Tell me about how this works.
Almost all my rentals in Baltimore are rented through Dayspring. I want to say services. It's not Dayspring Services. It's Dayspring Programs Incorporated. And basically, they are a local charity that works as like a women's shelter. So they help take in women who might be victims of domestic abuse or maybe have some drug problems, and they help get them rehabbed and get them back on their feet. And then once they have recovered, they help them find housing, and then they're kind of there for them for the first couple of years after they find housing to make sure they stay, clean, and they can find a job. And most of them have kids, so it's really helping families get back on their feet.
Is your lease with that organization or with the actual tenant that's living in the property?
That organization will place the tenants for me, but the lease is with the tenant.
Okay. And does the tenant have to pay anything, or does the organization pay the entire rent?
The organization right now is paying the entire rent.
That's awesome. So you don't have to worry about rent collection at all. As long as you got that lease signed. Do they direct deposit the money to you on the first?
Yep, it's pretty much, they send me a check. It's, for the whole
okay.
One check comes every month.
That is really awesome. Yep. And so then what about, do they, I know it, I guess that's kind of similar to like a Section 8 program, but with Section 8, they do a lot of inspections, and it can be kind of time consuming sometimes. Is it a similar type situation with this organization?
They do inspections annually through the Housing Urban Development. So, we do have that list of repairs.
Okay.
I'm okay with that because it keeps the house safe and keeps everything, I honestly haven't had to. The other thing that Dayspring does is they will come out monthly and just make sure the tenant is keeping the house clean and making sure they're doing what they're supposed to do.
Oh, that's great.
The utilities are still on. So I really haven't had to visit the properties or pretty much, really go there very often since I bought them. So
right. And it sounds like you did a pretty extensive rehab when you bought these properties. So do you have much maintenance stuff coming up?
They are older. That's the thing about Baltimore. The housing stock is old, 1920s, 1940s. Most of these houses are built before 1950s. So there is, maintenance stuff that comes up. Even if the house is renovated, there's always something that can happen.
Okay,
So that's the thing. I mean, great, you have greater cash flow, but there's also greater maintenance too. So
right. And what about like when a tenant moves out? Maybe they get their life together and they move out. I guess, do you have some vacancy between when they place the next tenant?
There is some time that elapses. If you want to stay in the program, they have to have a tenant that needs a house. First of all, it's someone in the program that needs a house. They don't always have that. But it's, they do shop the tenant around, so they also have to pick your property.
Right.
So it could take a couple of months. Luckily, I haven't had, knock on wood, had turnover since I started with the program. Okay. Everyone has stayed. But when there is a turnover, I expect there's probably going to be a couple of months of vacancy before they get somebody in there.
But it sounds like you're maybe getting a little bit over market rent.
Yes.
So,
it's actually a lot. It's a lot over market.
Oh, okay. So it wouldn't be a big deal to have a few months vacancy because, you've gotten over market rent and you're going to continue to get it. So
right. And the tenants have stayed. I mean, they're very grateful to be given the opportunity to get a house and everything. So they're nice tenants to have because they just love being there.
Right.
So,
right. And do the tenants give you any problems at all, or are they're just really grateful? Like, do you have any issues at all managing the properties?
Yeah, there are issues that we need to resolve. One is getting the water bill paid. The way the water bill works in Baltimore City is it's in the name of the homeowner, not in the name of the tenant. Mm-hmm. So there isn't any incentive for the tenant to pay that bill unless you nag them sufficiently. Because it all goes on you if the bill doesn't get paid.
Right. Okay.
So, we're basically working out a system where the tenants are just paying $100 a month, or whatever. Look at their average water bill and see what it is, and then they just pay that monthly, and then we just square it away quarterly or something like that. Just get them in the habit of paying.
Okay. So they pay you the $100 a month, and then you pay the water bill. Okay, that's a good way to do it. Now, something else that I wanted to talk to you about is you gave a presentation recently on financial freedom. Can you maybe just give us some of the highlights on like just some stuff people should know as they're working towards financial freedom?
Sure. That presentation was about what financial independence is and what it isn't, and different ways of getting there. There are three main strategies the stock market, business entrepreneurship, and rental real estate. So when I could focus on real estate for a minute, that's pretty much what I wanted to let everyone know is they didn't really have to buy 100 houses to get there.
Right.
It's actually easier than they think. I mean, really, the secret is to keep it as simple as possible. I believe the more free and clear properties that you can get, the better off you're going to be. So you don't have to get like 50 mortgaged houses. You might be fine with just 20 free and clear, for example, which is a lot easier to manage, a lot less issues, a lot better lifestyle while you're hitting your goal. So the goal really should be to get, maybe a handful of properties free and clear rather than try to gobble up as many as you can and one up the next guy who comes in and says he has 100 houses and all that. It's not important.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what's amazing to me after doing so many interviews is when you break it down, like you really don't need that many houses free and clear to have financial freedom. Like it's really, I know for someone that's maybe thinking of getting started, it seems overwhelming, but like it's not a huge number. And if you just let your tenants pay down these mortgages, you're eventually going to get there. So it's not really impossible. A lot of people have done it. Well, Mike, if someone wants to reach out to you or find more information out about you, what's the best way to do it?
Well, my partner, Marcus Hairston, and I run Rehabber Pro, which is a mentoring and a meetup in the Baltimore area. Rehabberpro.com is a great way to reach us. If you're on the meetup.com, the meetup is, I believe it's Rehabber Pro Baltimore Real Estate Meetup is our local meetup. So we're there every month. We meet at a different house that is either we're rehabbing or whether our students is rehabbing. You can meet us every second Saturday of every month at the house that's being rehabbed and just kind of hang out with 40, 50 other people interested or are doing rehabbing. And learn about rehabbing, learn about buy and hold, and we would love to meet you.
Real world stuff. I love that you're actually going to the property like that. I think that's the best way to learn, to actually get out there and do it. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and put Mike's information on the website. You can find it at rentalincomepodcast.com/episode 132. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the show. We'll be back with a brand new episode next Tuesday. My name is Dan Lane, and this has been the Rental Income Podcast.